First of all, it's an absolute pleasure to be with everyone here again. It's been a long time since we actually have been in a theater with everyone and have the ability to share some of the stuff that we've been working on, but also share the knowledge that has been shared from you to us to be able to collaborate and work together in these incredible pipelines that we're building and changing the way that we do storytelling. More than anything, today it is about creative pipelines. The industry is changing. There is a lot of changes around, but it is a really exciting time. There is no other art that is the better marriage between technology and art, and that is filmmaking. And we have the chance to actually take that and look ahead and create incredible stories. So today we have a really nice panel to have a chat about some of these pipeline changes and some of the creative input that we can actually do. So we have the one and only that, if you don't know him, is weird, Chris Wetherly. He has obviously been leading the 3D system with the Nuke team and worked with a lot of you and collaborate with a lot of you over the last few years. Then we have Alex Billabon, which is the incredible and kindest person here that has been sharing all his knowledge and his experimentation with AI with all of us and with all these changes of workflows. And for that, we are very thankful to him of how he comes in and talks to us about it. Then Courtney Pryce, which, you know, that dude had been with me in many places in the world, and I'm thankful to him for all the knowledge that he can share, and I'm looking forward to see how he's actually going to be sharing with us some of the work in Nuke Stage alongside Dan Caffrey, who is the product manager for the Nuke Stage team, and how we are evolving virtual production workflows there. And last but not least, I have the pleasure to introduce as well our newest member of the Foundry family in Amaru Seas, coming as creative director for Griptape. And he'll be sharing how he's been using Griptape for his creative workflows and storytelling. So, as always, nothing is done in isolation, and it's all, again, based on the partnerships that we build with everyone. And in this case, we obviously have a great partnership around hardware, and I want to introduce to James from AMD and Lenovo.
Good evening, everyone. So I appreciate I'm really not the person that you are here to listen to or want to listen to at this point in time. So I promise I will keep this very, very brief. I wasn't given a huge amount of time or warning that I was doing this either, so I'm going to use some notes. I hope you don't mind. So my name is James Clark. I'm the workstation technologist at Lenovo. And on behalf of AMD and Lenovo, I'd just like to say it's an absolute honor to be here. Thank you very much to Foundry for inviting us. And congratulations on the launch of this amazing new software. It really is an honor to be here to talk to such an amazing community of people. And let's face it, that's kind of what this is. This is a community of amazing people getting together to really celebrate the kind of things that you guys do. And the kind of things that we go to the cinema for, you know, as a cinema freak myself, nothing makes me happier than sitting down and watching a good film. That comes from you guys, okay? The work that you guys put into this, the work that you do day to day, and you know, I know you've had to tear yourself away from node graphs and rendering frame loading bars to come and be here today. So we really do appreciate you coming and sort of spending the time listening to us on this one. What I would like to say is that, AMD and Lenovo, we've got a lot of respect for what you do, and we spend a lot of time working with our partners at Foundry to really refine the things that we do for you. And it's not about the hardware. You know, everything that we do should sit in the background, you know, very similar to, if you don't mind me saying, what you guys do. You know, the very best work that you do, it goes unnoticed by the audience. And that's the way it should be. It sounds a little harsh to hear me say it, I know. But when you guys are at your very best, the audience doesn't realize the amount of work that's gone into it. And that really is the kind of highest praise that I think anyone could bestow upon artists like yourself. And that's what we strive to do as well. The partnership that we work with, the guys at Foundry, they work really, really hard to set the ingredients, the tools that you guys use day to day. we at Lenovo, we work really, really hard to sort of provide the tools that make that tool set work as well as it can, the pots and pans, if you like. And AMD really provide that power that goes underneath it, the hob cooker, to sort of set you guys off in motion and cooking. Because at the end of the day, no one remembers the type of pots and pans a chef uses. No one remembers the type of hob that they use. What they remember is the chef themselves and the work that they create. And that's really what we're here to do, to support you guys with. So what I'd like to say more than anything really is thank you. Again, for having us here. Thank you for spending just 2 minutes of your time listening to me prattle on. I do really appreciate being here in front of you guys and, trying to support you guys in what you do in any way, shape and form. It was nearly 8 years ago that AMD came to us and said, we're thinking about putting some Pro Tools out there to sort of help smaller studios actually get the enterprise grade support that we can, that they don't currently get from system builders. And that's where Threadripper was born. And it truly has revolutionized the way a lot of studios work day to day. So we are extremely proud of that. And we will continue to build upon the technology that we provide for you guys to help you provide everything that you provide to the world. So again, thank you very much. Thank you for listening to me, and enjoy the rest of the night. I will get out of your hair. Thank you very much.
Right. Fortunately, you don't have to deal with me for that much longer either. So, what is the plan for tonight? We're going to be looking at the Nuke family and some of the new stuff that is happening there, alongside Nuke Stage and how we're actually changing pipeline to go into virtual production. And at the end, we have the great Amaru showing us all the new things, or the great new toy, that is Griptape. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Chris Wetherly to start the show.
Hey everyone, lovely to see you all here tonight. Yeah, I'm really excited to present, some of the Nuke 17 feature set, but mainly around the 3D system. As one said, if you don't know me, my name's Chris Wetherly. I'm a PM on the Nuke team, and I've been heavily involved in the 3D system for a number of years now. And we're really excited to get to the point where we can have you experience the tool set, use it in production, and really talk about what we can do next and continue going forward with this technology. I also wanted to use this as an opportunity just to sort of talk about the journey, like how we started, why we started this, and what that also means for connecting to these creative pipelines that we're trying to build. The main why of it was to provide a modern and performant 3D system, and to do this for compositing artists. That was always the big starting point for us. We wanted to make sure, and this was really important to me, that we maintained all the workflows that you know and love, but make sure that we're adding new ones as well. And then there's, the other part of this when thinking about the main creative pipeline is how do we make sure that your skills and knowledge, your skill set is able to travel through the pipeline to the places it's needed with this changing, developing world we're experiencing in film. So how we went about this, first it was starting on the architecture. That was a really important part. How do we make sure this tool set we're building fits into your pipeline needs? How do we make sure that it services all the different spaces you need to occupy? So when looking at that, we looked at a number of different places, but USD ended up being the landing point for architecture. And I'll explain why in some of the slides coming, but one thing that I thought was really key about that is what if the data you're using in Nuke is the same data you're using in all the other Foundry pipeline tools, so in Katana, in Nuke Stage, and other DCCs that you have access to, and giving you that ability to easily pass data back and forth. It was also really important for us to focus on what do you do at the core of comp. In 3D and comp, we're always doing map paintings, we're doing projection workflows, and how can we make sure that these workflows are benefiting from the new power of the new system, but also traversing to wherever you need them to be. And then for artist tools, we know how much, focusing on just the little artist day to day can help improve things massively. So we really want to make sure we were getting feedback at each stage. Early on, one of the big common feedback points we got was, we just want the same tools but better, add more things in, but make sure we're still able to do what we've always been able to. And then the introduction of new technologies, that was also key, obviously looking to the future, looking ahead at how we can make sure your comp tools sit at all the advancing technologies that there are. And we wanted to make sure we kept all this flexible, not just for pipelines, for artists as well. The who was so easy. It was obviously a tool set designed for comp artists. You know, when we first talked about the 3D system, we weren't looking to build a 3D system to replace any other DCCs out there. Comp artists have a unique place to think and explore and to use 3D tools, and their tools should be built for them in a way that, you know, how you want to use, how you want to work. So that one was really easy for us to understand right off the bat. So I want to run through some of the 3D system highlights from the new 17 release. Now, if you've seen any of the demo videos or any of our content, a lot of this will be familiar. So I want to explore it more through the lens of what do each of these feature sets mean when connecting it to that creative pipeline that we're talking today about. How are the things put in place now going to impact and affect how we grow and improve the tool set in the future? So the first and foremost, there were two main elements. It's, you know, making sure that we have Nuke's 3D workflows, but also combining that with the power of USD. And when I talk about the power of USD, the first and foremost part of it was around just getting that scale and performance. So you as comp artists had access to all the same data as everyone else to be able to work with it at a scale and performance that just meant you were on par with those around you. But USD power also extends into how you collaborate, the non-destructive nature of it, meaning that you can pass data back and forth easily, or the ability to use the new technology that USD can connect us to. So if we're thinking things like the Hydra viewport, allowing you to have a consistent experience in all different places or make choices that you need for your pipelines. But all of this needs to sit in the background. The most important part to us was using that USD power, but at the forefront, making sure that you had Nuke 3D workflows there. USD itself can be quite complex at times, but we didn't want artists to have to really deal with that if they don't want to. If they want to do a simple projection setup, it should still be simple for them. So that was really at the core of it, making sure those 3D workflows were front and center. Now that basically means you have access to all the same data as everyone else, access to all the same ability that the USD scenes give you, but really you're still going to want to mostly just grab the individual elements you need to do a specific scene setup, to do a specific projection workflow. So we want to make sure we were designing the tool set in a way where you could filter down, grab exactly the geo or the camera you need, but do it in a way which had a shared language across the pipeline of our tool sets. So the same ways that, you know, artists in Katana might talk or artists elsewhere could work. And all of this means that once you have that data inside of Nuke, you can work with all the workflows that you know. This is a very simple example. We're just doing a camera track with a UV projection onto a card and rendering it out for a cleanup on the path. But all of these workflows we wanted to preserve for you and make sure that, you know, you could do the same thing, use your same knowledge. So here we have the classic system node graph can be one-to-one with the new 3D systems node graph. So these elements, we really took that feedback of, you know, build the same tool sets but make them better. So here we're recreating that. This also led to opportunities for how we could, you know, take the power of workflows that we already know and love on the 2D side and bring them into 3D. So introducing masks into the 3D system, just like we have on 2D nodes, but also the ability to say if masks are set up elsewhere in the pipeline, you can bring those in as well and work with them. So that flexibility that you get to have be in that conversation with other parts of the pipeline. But, you know, as an artist, sometimes I just want to use a mask so that when I'm projecting, I'm just isolating it to a specific part of my geometry, or even setting materials on specific parts of a car so I can add a reflection to them and just do that fine dialing in on comp at the last minute to get those effects that maybe got missed. And I don't have time to go back and re-render them from a different department or things like that. There's all these workflows where, again, going back to that mantra of more of the same but better. So with projections, making sure that you can do now sticky projections, or the ability to tweak your time offsets and frame holes at fractional values so you can really dial in how accurate they are. Same with our constraints. We made sure to introduce new workflows like the GeoConstrain node, which gives you access to constrain on vertex, faces, manipulating space and time, use more than just lookats and do with parent or transformations and scales and rotations. All of this in a new node, but also ported back to our axis node system. We wanted to make sure that that toolset also got these benefits. And the axis nodes actually are something that we found really important in thinking about what is it that comp artists workflow need that other artists don't. So these axis nodes are very unique in 3D. I don't think any other 3D tools work this way. So we wanted to make sure that still existed for you. And actually, it's a great way to make sure we're still moving data anywhere you need in Nuke. Anywhere there's a cam input, an axis input, whether that's across 2D nodes, 3D nodes, deep, you can still use all these axis nodes to pass data wherever you need. In this example here, we're taking a drone in the new 3D system, benefiting from all the new shaders and lighting, but we can still use that transformation data, that movement, to drive the emitters of our particles in the classic particle system. Now, I've spoken a lot about technologies there, where they're tools where we've looked at what we had before and we've tried to build them better. But we also wanted to make sure there were new tool sets available to you. And that's where we first have our first introduction of MaterialX natively inside of Nuke. Now, this is a toe in the water for us because this is a material standard surface node that enables you to do better look dev, create better results inside of Nuke. But what it will grow to be is about how can we take this shading and look dev work, or these material workflows, and really make sure comp can have a much bigger part of the conversation in building them out. How can we take the shaders and materials from inside of Nuke and transfer them across the pipeline to where we need them to go? When we combine these shaders with new lighting tools, with lights, we're again trying to focus on how artists want to communicate, updating the knob terminology to reflect the terminology we use on set, color, temperature, exposure, intensity, and making sure that in the viewport you can see it to make creative decisions much sooner. So this viewport using Hydra technology is shared across all of our pipeline tools with Katana, Nuke, and Nuke Stage, so you can have that consistent look from one to the other, or even swap it out for a different render delegate for your own choices. Combine all of these things, the MaterialX, the lighting, the rendering, it just means more options in comp, more ability to make your creative choices and use your skill set, use your knowledge to pass it where it needs to go and create beautiful imagery. The other part of this was rendering. There was so much work that went into updating Scanline Render 2. Now it's defaulting to a ray tracer with better sampling, better motion blur, all in the service of making sure the quality of the final pixel you get is really there to help integrate your shots so much better, meaning that you can create better reflections right from Nuke, right from comp, or even now create better refraction elements to make sure that you're generating the data you need yourselves. And this integrates into so much more. So this singular shot is using all the examples that we've listed in the past slides. So constraints to attach a card to the engine's output in the back, the connections of axis nodes to create the particle system, or reflections on the windows, and so much more. And I think another part of this is connecting how all of this work wasn't just in the service of all the workflows we're used to, but also all the new workflows and technologies are coming. We wanted to make sure there was a platform and architecture that could be used to benefit all of us. And that doesn't just mean Nuke, but also all the other tools in our pipeline. So this platform for something new was introduced in 2017, where we can use the 3D system for Gaussian Splats, which has been such an exciting thing to see develop and such an exciting tool to be able to start working with. So for the Gaussian Splats, we can now import, edit, and render natively in Nuke. And all of this allows for a volumetric workflow in compositing that we really think is going to help with your map paintings or element integrations and create new workflows that you'll tell us more about, and we'll build more tools to help support. What this looks like now is that you can create essentially 3D masks using a whole new system called the field system. And fields are a way for us to essentially generate these 3D masks in the new space. Now we're using fields to obviously complement the Splats workflow now, but really it can connect to any tool set that's a volumetric based workflow. So think future particle systems or deep, or anything to do with volumes. In this example, we're using it to just isolate this table inside of our Splat. We can then delete all the points around it, so we've got it in a single space, and do all the comp things that we'd usually do in the 3D space. So use all the same 3D toolset to move it into place, to merge it with the rest of the scene. The whole scene here is a splat in itself. And once they're in place, it doesn't look quite right. So we want to do the comp things that we always do, make things integrate better. So here we can use the geograde node and the fields to grade a shadow underneath the bench, and then use other field nodes to soften that shadow and integrate the elements. All that's comp skill set and knowledge. It becomes more and more applicable on all these workflows in different spaces. This one's a bit more of a lengthy example, but it's really about how integrating these tool sets naturally and natively into Nuke is really important to us. So you can combine splats with all the 3D data we've just gone through, but also deep as well. So in this example, the entire mountain range and trees are all a splat, and we're removing the castle like we did with the picnic table, then taking a 3D castle, rendering that out, and integrating it into the same element, all using deep data. So the Splat Render node and the Scanline Render 2 are outputting deep data, meaning we can make sure that tree line is really obscuring accurately to integrate our elements for a better map painting or a better projection or comp workflow. I mentioned early on about, unfortunately, Mark, who was the lead on this project, not being able to be here. I managed to sneak him in. And like there's so much more to do with this tool sets that we're excited to build towards and show you. So one thing we have here is some of our lab nodes that we've introduced in 17. These are experimental. They're more for, no promises, but in a way to show you what we're thinking and have that closer connection with you to say, help validate these ideas and workflows. So with that, there's been a number of amazing things that we've been really keen to show you and how all of this tool set that we're building can connect to some of the other stuff that's coming on stage in a second. But I think what I'd like to do now is introduce Alex Villabon, the head of visual development at Framestore, to discuss his journey with splats, because I think he's had some really fascinating insights that I'm excited for him to tell. Welcome to the stage, Alex.
Thank you. Sure. Yeah, it's a good day for Nuke. It's terribly exciting to be here, specifically for splats. I started talking about splats about 2 years ago, dreaming of the day that we could actually have control over them inside of Nuke. And at the time, it was always you need to go to another package, right? So it just became a render pass. So you would just get it as an asset, but you didn't have the flexibility of being nimble and doing things directly in Nuke. And that's why I think this is I was very happy when I heard this was happening, and even happier when they invited me to talk about it. So what's impactful about splats in Nuke 17 is the fact that we as compositors are very good problem solvers. We're very crafty by nature, and now having access to this directly means that we're going to come up with so many new ideas, and we're going to think about it differently because we approach our work slightly differently. So it's going to be incredible to see what people do with it. And for those that haven't really heard about Gaussian Splats or even tested them yet, this is, I think, going to be pretty revolutionary in the sense that we're used to be working with plates. But now with Gaussian Splats, we're actually going to have volumetric plates. So we need to start thinking about things differently. It's not just about, how we're going to capture that shot. It's like, no, let's just capture the environment, and then we can talk about lenses. We can talk about so much more after the fact. Reshoots, it's just incredibly flexible. And I think just having it at the compositor level is just going to open so many options. At Framestore, we're using it more and more, and one use case that came up recently in one of the projects was motion control is very expensive, it's very big, it's complicated, and you can't always do it, even though it would make our lives so much easier if we always had clean plates for everything. So what someone came up with in the team was, we had this project where we were going to need to do a lot of very complicated cleanup. And what we did was, let's capture the set, let's track our shots, and then line up the splats to the set, to the shots. So then you could just very easily, if we had Nuke 17, which we didn't, you could just key mix it, right? So you could just key mix the results of the splats with the background, and you could do it before Nuke 17 by rendering it in a 3D package and then bring it into Nuke. But now that's something that we can start to think about, these new ideas that just weren't available to us before. Also recently at Framestore, we released the Superman movie with the 4D Gaussian Splats, and that was, of course, very, very good work. But even though I wasn't part of the project directly, I can see how nodes would always need to go back a step in the chain. Whereas now, if we're talking about how to line something up or how to change an angle or how to retime something, it just could have been done now in Nuke, and that just removing that layer of friction, that extra step of having to go back a department to then get back and then go to dailies again. It's like, no, I can just action the nodes immediately directly in Nuke. And I think that's the sort of thing that I sort of like banging the drum of experience it and start thinking of the new ideas, because I think that's what's going to be very interesting once it gets in the hands of everyone. So just to summarize, I think to me it's all about three things. It's speed of iteration, because we just get to keep it in the software we already know and love and use every day. It's integration, because it's directly in the tool. But more importantly, now it's about accessibility. It's like it's the time for the compers to enjoy splats, and I'm very excited about that. So I can't wait to see what new ideas come now that so many more people are going to be dealing with them. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. Yeah, really great to hear the use cases and production. Now, I want to introduce the next part of our session, and we're going to be talking about another one of the products. But I want to also share about how the technology we've been building connects across that pipeline we've been talking about. So here we have our discussion around how we've been building all this 3D tool set, how it's embracing new technologies like splats. But we also want to embrace technologies in different spaces. What could it mean to take all those workflow knowledge you've built in Nuke, so the map paintings, the projection workflows, and bring them into the virtual environment, into virtual production? I do want to highlight that we have Splats, a free trial of Nuke 17. So if you're interested in exploring the new tool set and bringing these workflows into your own spaces, then please scan the QR code and have a play with the new tools. So to talk more on that, I'd love to welcome Dan Caffrey to the stage. Well, come up, Dan.
Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited today to introduce Nuke Stage. Nuke Stage is a creative application for virtual production, and it's really running LED stages across the world right now, doing live compositing and sequencing for in-camera visual effects. And it was built from the ground up really to connect the on-set virtual production process with the visual effects world and bring those two closer together. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dan Caffrey. I'm the product manager for virtual production. And joining me shortly on stage is Courtney Pryce, creative director of XI VFX and Nuke VFX artist. So virtual production as a filmmaking technique has evolved rapidly over the last number of years, and adoption across the industry has never been broader. But with that rapid adoption, we've seen some complexity, and productions are in increasing demand to deliver better results faster and with more confidence. And so that brings us to the question of how are we to help deliver those things. And that's really the exact problem that Nuke Stage was developed to solve. It was how do we maximize the existing talent and technology pipelines that we already rely on as studios. When we bring those things together, we allow virtual production to then be scalable and repeatable across production. So with this workflow, Nuke and Nuke Stage is working together now across the entire production lifecycle. Nuke handles the content preparation and later, if needed, further post-production. A Nuke Stage can then focus on the on-set creativity and the handoff to post. And that's made possible by Nuke Stage's Metadata Vault, which captures all of the creative decisions in real time as they happen on set and hands that back off into Nuke. And what we're really chasing in virtual production is in-camera finals. As a production, if we spend our budgets on a on-set process, how do we give ourselves the best chance of achieving final pixel on set? And on an LED stage too, the team is effectively live real-time compositing. At any point in time, we're managing the relationship between the environment on screen, the physical lighting fixtures, and how they look through the camera. So success really comes from keeping artists where they're strongest, using familiar tools, but also using a familiar creative language on set to increase collaboration. And really all of that comes down to an image-first way of thinking. So to explore Nuke Stage and how the compositing skill set helps us achieve those goals, I'd like to hand over to Courtney Pryce.
All right, thanks for that, Dan. Much appreciated. So with Nuke 17's brand new 3D system, we can utilize the USD format to exchange data. In Nuke, we've now got a new gizmo called the Stage USD Exporter to import scenes directly into Nuke Stage. With USDs, we can send all of the on-set metadata, notes, geometry, animated cameras with embedded time of day time codes to Nuke for round tripping and future use in post. The workflows for Nuke Stage are typical traditional, like to build the backgrounds for Nuke Stage, traditional Nuke compositing techniques that we're all familiar with. You're looking at texture projections onto geometry to create photoreal, high-resolution EXR environments, and this helps to ensure the real-time playback on your LED volume. The color accuracy and wide dynamic range of EXRs can be used for image-based lighting in the volume to immerse the stage in like ambient lighting, and the photorealism of the live-action plates can be used to build the environment to get it closer to that final pixel end result. With Nuke Stage, artists will find familiar nodes inside there and a node graph system. We can edit and override prepared USD scenes to add extra flexibility in production on set. You could have a Nuke artist preparing scenes and exporting directly to a Nuke Stage session, bringing those two departments closer together. Or you can potentially combine roles where we've had cases of a Nuke artist transitioning into a Nuke Stage operator in the space of a day. This makes Nuke Stage really accessible, and you're already accessing an established large talent pool of artists. In Nuke Stage, we can use a variety of tools to create custom setups for the shoot to give greater flexibility in production. We can control things like the textures of the USD scenes, create masks, noise maps, extract keys, import reads and import external maps for localized color corrections, merge operations, and so forth. And then there's real-time tools like depth of field defocusing using depth passes, and we can animate, keyframe, and activate cues in the sequencer of Nuke Stage on like the timeline dope sheet of the sequencer. And with all these possible setups and variations, we also have UI state snapshots, so it allows us to easily jump to and from different setups as and when we need on a shoot. The sequencer in Nuke Stage acts as a timeline and a dope sheet. So here we can animate and queue events to trigger different attributes at specific points in time. This has a variety of uses, like activating an animated layer on a specific queue. Think like birds flying in the background at a specific time, or a car driving past in the background on command. And similarly in Nuke, we can control, similarly to Nuke, we can control the interpolation of those keyframes and the looping behavior and of the animated values. And the vault, so this is the vault area, and this is where Nuke Stage records all the metadata from the virtual production shoot. You can either save snapshots or takes in this space, snapshots being more specific to the state of the project at a specific time, and the take is the recording of the camera data, and that'll have the slate name, the time, the code, any notes accompanying the take, and Nuke Stage being able to export that metadata, camera, and geometry straight into Nuke significantly reduces the friction downstream of the pipe. So this is an example of Nant Studios. This is probably one of the largest volumes in the world, and that's Nuke Stage being driven there. As well as the technical barriers of a virtual production shoot, crewing is a significant barrier as well, and this is one of the things that we're trying to address and lower with Nuke Stage. Nuke Stage being a complement to Nuke, it allows us to tap into that global talent pipeline of Nuke artists and their wealth of expertise. And for studios, it allows incremental adoption. You can leverage those existing artists and also repurpose the existing hardware and pipelines that you're already using. So to kind of illustrate the complexity of we're solving for it, one particular shoot had 4 different environments created in Nuke. They're high resolution images, geometry projection with the photorealism and can give full 3D parallax. real-time compositing and effects created and controlled inside of Nuke Stage. And this was all powered with 11 off-the-shelf machines, no specialist hardware. There was over 300 hours uptime with no major crashes. Shot through 2 tracked large sensor ARRI 265 cameras. Color accuracy managed through OCIO and HDR. And in the end, 450 takes and metadata was delivered back to Nuke for post-production and future use. Now, with Nuke 17, and all the new feature sets in Nuke 17, you can utilize things like the physically based materials using a MaterialX shader, the machine learning tools, Copycat and the Big Cat for large data sets, cat models to upscaling, segmenting, large mask inpainting. All of that can help build and prepare these virtual production backgrounds for use in Nuke Stage. And with the two of them working so closely together, you can also benefit from the next generation VFX tools that are in Nuke and also in Nuke Stage, such as Gaussian Splattings and being able to import and control .ply files and to be used as scanned assets or environment elements to help you populate a background scene. And also there's native support for Notch on Windows and Linux, with Notch LC being a real-time playback format that exposes controllable parameters with Nuke Stage, and it's high resolution, and it's one of the standard playback formats in virtual production. So all of those features contribute to a greater experience of the Nuke-based virtual production process pipeline. And whilst this new products being offered, like, we're still maintaining the ethos of the Foundry products being open, interoperable, hardware agnostic, and modular to fit any pipeline. So that brings our segment to a close. Thank you for listening, and do visit our webpage. We'll find out. You can find out more, and we'll also be releasing some Nuke Stage tutorials soon to help artists get comfortable using Nuke Stage. So thank you for that, and enjoy the rest of the presentation. Cool.
Right, now I have the great pleasure to move us into Griptape. What the guys just showed as well is these whole concepts, how the pipelines are changing. If we actually take a little bit about how Alex talked about volumetric plates and how we're actually changing the way that we're manipulating and thinking across the pipeline. And that is how we had the great chance of meet the Griptape team, and now being able to actually have it as part of Foundry, where we can actually talk about how we can actually do pipeline orchestration and bring that into all of our day-to-day workflows and push our workflows forward in the next years to come. It's a pleasure for me to introduce Amaro Seas, who's going to show you how he's been using it throughout this time and experimenting with it and creating new workflows to do creative storytelling.
Right, I got the hot topic now, generative AI. No, I'm super excited and happy to be here. My name is Amaro Seas Sigüenza. I have about 18 years of experience in the M&E industry, working in games, VFX, animation, VR, XR, everything. But in the past, probably about a year and a half, I've been actually using a lot of generative AI tools to blend with my years of experience with the traditional DCCs. This is not just about prompting and to the final pixel. This is a huge process behind it. I was, I had some time to spend doing some R&D. I produced 2 short films on my own. Everything, again, using traditional DCCs, but using Griptape's platform. I would like to start talking about, a couple of things, because when first I started working on this process, I started to exploring how I can actually blend CGI and generative AI. So here we have Griptape nodes. Right here, it's a whole workflow to basically replace the background without changing the asset that is coming from Unreal Engine. Here I have a basic text prompt, But the entire Griptape has an entire framework with agents that you can just use them to enhance the prompting. And all what I'm doing here is run it through an agent. It will just get the prompting better. I'm using segmentation and also depth estimation. And then I'm generating a new background with a local model to then replace it and do the final comp. But then I started thinking, there's actually better ways to do things in Griptape because we keep innovating. And I'm super excited about this one. So it's the same principle, but what I was able to do, because Griptape nodes allows me to actually bytecode stuff as well. Like in this case, I bytecode a node upper here, upper left corner, that is actually pixel streaming on Unreal Engine 5. And the fact that you can actually do this live and choose the right angle on the car, or change the lighting and things like that is actually very, very, very powerful. And this type of workflow can be used in different ways. You can do previs for if you're working on a shot, and then you have all like the basic characters or basic geometry, and actually pipe it into Griptape nodes and have an entire workflow to regenerate stuff as you need it. So it's the same process. You have the segmentation. I'm using SAM2 or SAM3 as well. You can choose which one. And basically, it's segmenting the car itself, and then I use a nano-banana generator model to generate the background, and then just do background replacement. After that, I can take it into my favorite, DCC to do the final comp. And then you can see I'm preserving everything that I actually 3D model and do all the texturing and things like that for the car. But then you can see like the background changes, but the car stays intact. And it's just a wonderful way to blend in traditional DCC workflows with generative AI. Now we can talk about probably segmentation with generative AI. I know probably Nuke has wonderful tools. There's also like this type of generative models that you can actually use them 100% on your local machine. Just to give you a little bit of hint of a little bit of context and history, top is SAM2 from Meta, and bottom is SAM3. And the only thing that I prompt was hair. And you can see the two differences because one is actually much better. So this kind of gives you an idea of how this technology is rapidly actually accelerating. The second one, this is a fun little project that I'm working on. Same principle, I just wanted to segment the t-shirt itself. And as you can see, it actually, it did it beautifully. And then you can use the mask in any compositor program to do the final comp, and it's just much, much easier. Now, this one was a little more tricky because I wanted to segment the head of my character, but if I play here, so you can see the head actually the shot starts with the helmet closed. So in Griptape nodes, as you can see here, the text prompt is just capybara head. But if I use this text prompt with the helmet closed, obviously it's not going to be able to do it because the model won't see a head until the helmet is open. So that's why having these models in Griptape nodes is really cool, because I was able to actually just have the original video here, and then I can use a reverse node. I'm not changing the quality or anything like that, it's just reversing the frames. And then because I'm reversing the shot, I can actually do the segmentation, and it works super nice. And this is using SAM3. SAM3 is very powerful. You can do with multi characters, multi objects in a very, very complex environments as well. Here's another little example that I did. This is not the best comp I ever done. I did it like just in 2 days, but just to show you how you can actually blend live action, some CGI elements, and generative AI. So using generative AI to actually change the background, do some maybe testing just before you actually jump into 3D. And it's actually really, really fast to do this type of workflows now with Griptape nodes. Okay, now one of my favorites, we all know how time-consuming is rotoscoping. And video inpainting is something actually that I've been exploring lately. Here you have a little example. So we have a video, and then I tried to use SAM3. It gave me some errors. That's why it's really cool to have actually multiple models to choose from in Griptape nodes. So I'm just gonna let it play for a little bit. But the whole idea was to, pick a really complex video, and I want to remove the car, but I want to leave the smoke or the dust behind the car. So you can see here, I did choose or try to run it with SAM3, but SAM3 was having a little bit of a hard time like picking which car, And I tried like multiple prompts, but wasn't quite working. But the beauty is that we support all the models that you can, still try and test which one works best for different workflows. And also like the whole idea of having this platform is that allows artists like myself to build or maybe vibe code this type of node, which that's what I did. And sometimes I do that and just give it to the engineers, and they obviously will do it much better, but it just gives me the ability to try before even, ask for a new tool or things like that. So I passed the original video, the new mask, to this node that I built, and I'm using a open source model for this one. It's called Minimax, and it will just segment the car, and we'll do an in-paint in here. I rendered this 100% locally. Again, this is not on the cloud, anything like that, but you can see that actually the car is gone. And this is not perfect. This is just the first foundation to give it to an artist and just start working on top of it. But I think it just can accelerate the process tremendously, in my opinion. Right, so I briefly talk about custom nodes and widgets. I love widgets. It definitely, gives me the ability to try new things. And this is, well, it's a little dark, but I hope you can see it. So this is a little library that I did. So there is a website called StillGraph, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a data set of more than 4,000 films. They're just URL images. I'm not downloading anything. There's nothing illegal here. But you have access to 261,000 still images from films. So I had the idea to actually make something for anybody to first learn about film, because you can learn just with the visuals and the colors and things like that, but also have the ability to extract some colors if there's something that you like. So the way that it works, you can see here, this is like how many films you have and then the stills, but then if I go to the next one here, so there's different ways that you can search for a film. There's, by title of the film, by the director, if you know. If you don't know, I built something that is just random. So every morning you're working on a project and you want some inspiration. You click render, and because these are just image URLs, it's just really, really, really fast. It just takes a second. But also I built an LLM. So let's just say that you don't even know, how to search for a film. So you can actually pick one of the LLMs that we have and type like, I don't know, I feel working on a project that is, sad and blue colors or something like that. It will actually try to pick something that fits what the user is looking for. All right, I think this is the last part. Yeah, okay. So I call it visual prompting. This is just me calling it visual prompting. This is not a thing. As an artist, I had to transform myself, because with these new generative AI tools, I have to learn how to prompt, how to type. And I'm used to just, change settings on a program instead of just, typing something. So with that in mind, I actually built a prototype, again, using widgets. And the way that it works, I tried to build a UI that actually helps you understand how you want this character to be placed on a specific background. And I kind of like split it in two parts. So you can see like every single of these ones right here, they're more for like I would call it pro users, or people who are more familiar with the terminology, like, camera, focal length, and things like that. But also for anybody to just jump in and pick one of the thumbnails that I just provided. And the idea is like you pick everything here, and then we have an LLM right here that you can choose from, and it will just create the text prompt for you. So you don't have to, deal with that. The beauty of Griptape is that you can actually create your own rule set. Rule sets means that you can give the behavior of your agent the way that you want to be prompting, which is very, very powerful.
And at the end, you can see it's actually picking up everything that I chose from that node, and you have the character placed in there. You can do this with 3D characters that you have rendered, or even the vice versa, like you can have the background but not the character and things like that. So this kind of gives you just an idea of the potential of custom nodes and widgets. All right, so that's for Griptape. Now, I've been working on a little project that I think hopefully you like it. It's a 5-minute first episode of a mini-series. I just wanted to remind you that this was done by a solo artist who has lots of passion for film, has been using DCCs for some long time, and has decided just to merge the new technology with traditional filmmaking. Thank you. Hope you enjoy it.
One more time, walk me through what happened.
Again? You lot don't take notes.
This isn't amusing.
Depends who you ask. All right. No need to redecorate. Let me walk you through it. You asked what happened. Fine. I woke up at 5:30, which, for the record, I resent. I brushed my teeth. Top row first, circular motion. I opened the wardrobe, considered my options, and chose carefully. Then I made coffee, black, strong enough to forgive the morning. Then I watered Mr. Nakamura, also carefully.
Enough!
Predictable.
I knew it! Of course you did. Let's go.
Do you think Mr. Nakamura's all right?
The bonsai?
I left the window open.
I'm sure he'll survive.
He's resilient. Bloody hell.
Give me the suit. Find the box. I'll have a word with them.
Good luck with that.
Power instability detected. Reactor offline.
Seriously?
Reactor unstable. Systems online.
I've missed this. Package secured. Worth it.
Oh, I'm beat. Are you hungry?
Oh, mate. We know you have it.
What happened to you? did this to you?
No wonder they guarded it. It's her.
Thank you, Mario. That was amazing. And hopefully you got interest on what we're trying to do here. I think what we really, really care is how do we bring this into our workflows? How are we going to be doing these connections with Nuke, with Katana, with the workflows that we know that we have perfected over 30 years, that we know in there? How are we using that technology alongside new agentic workflows that we can build across orchestration and the whole platform that we can bring from Griptape? So really, thank you very much from the Foundry team. We cannot do what we do, obviously, without you. And it's been amazing to be a partner to you guys and be able to actually learn so much and work with you throughout all these years and be able to continue this partnership and build the next generation of workflows. And with that, I'm going to say thank you very much. See you later.